Hello again, lovely listeners, and welcome to Refinement, Not Retirement, the unique podcast that advocates refining your life over retiring from it. Podcasting again from the beautiful Cotswolds village of Elmley Castle in the West Midlands region of England. This is Tony, here again today with my co-host, wife and life partner, Christine. Hello, Christine.
Hello, everybody.
So after quitting the business we ran for over 30 years together, Christine and I now consider ourselves to be in refinement, not retirement. On this podcast up till now, and we've been talking about all sorts of refinements that we've made in our lives. We're going to be talking about other enhancements that we've made to our lives. But today, we want to talk to you about one refinement that we've made good few years ago now, that we've been teasing you about from time to time in the earlier episodes without actually going into it and talking about it. Now we're going to talk about it. The name of the sport that we're going to be talking about, our sport, the sport that we love, that we're passionate about, don't laugh, is pickleball. More on that a bit later, that we're probably going to do this, we are going to do this, in fact, in two parts. So this episode today, Christine and I will be talking about the sport, explaining it to you, why it deserves your attention. And in the next episode, which I'm very excited about, well, both Christine and I are very excited about it, we will have a special guest on, which I'll tell you more about at the end, but as an expert in pickleball and someone who is very important to the game in England. More on that later. I'm going to start off by briefly describing the sport to you so that you know what it is that we're talking about, because the chances are extremely high that you have never heard of this sport with a slightly ridiculous name. I'm going to tell you why it has, how that name came about. But it is far from a ridiculous sport. It is something that will, if you like racket sports, if you have some level of hand-eye coordination, this is a sport that you really ought to take a look at. So let's start with the basics. Pickleball is the fastest growing racket sport, probably the fastest growing sport in the United States, certainly. But it is growing like wildfire across the globe. It is played on a badminton-sized court. The outer dimensions of the court are identical to badminton, but there is a slight difference, which I will explain to you in a moment, to the court layout. Pickleball is played either in singles format, but far more likely, as with tennis, to be played in doubles format. And it's great fun in both formats. It's a lot more demanding physically in the singles format, just as tennis is. It is often described as a combination between badminton, table tennis, and tennis, a sort of hybrid of those three sports, if you like. It's played with, each player plays with, and what I often describe as an oversized table tennis bat, which is called a paddle.
Not to be confused with paddle tennis, and I'm sure you'll explain that too.
Very good point.
People will go, oh, like paddle tennis, and it's nothing like paddle tennis.
That's why it's important, because I'm not doing this from any notes, and I'm just trying to remember things. So it's very good that you chip in like that and keep me on.
And presumably, Tony, you will put a link anyway to something on YouTube or to somebody to see how it's played, right?
Yes. Well, between us, using our Facebook page for Refinement, Not Retirement, our podcast, we will put up links, we will put up pictures and other helpful information with regard to the sport, because we are passionate about it and we want to promote it, and we don't want you to miss out, which you could very easily do, because it's still in embryonic stage in England, certainly. So here you've got these 4 players playing doubles format on the sort of court I've described. The next most, well, let's start with this, the service. No, let's go back a bit. The net, it's played on a badminton-sized court, and originally when the game was invented, the people who invented it in America, they were just messing around and trying to find a family game that they were in the process of sort of organically inventing for their kids and for the whole family to play together. They actually simply lowered a badminton net to more like the height of a tennis net. So it's much lower than a badminton net. It's more of a profile of a tennis net. Now, either side of the, no, let me go back a bit. Let's talk about the service. The service, unlike tennis, the service is underarm. It is played from the, if you like, the deuce side of the court, as it is in tennis first, and it is played to the receiver, as in tennis, the serve must bounce. It bounces in the quadrant, the big quadrant at the back of the opposite diagonal court. The receiver plays the return as the same as tennis, as I've said, but now here is the big important rule that is unique to pickleball. As far as I'm aware, it's unique to pickleball. The actual return of serve must bounce. The serving team cannot take that ball out of the air, cannot do a volley until they have played that third shot. Hope everyone's with me. And then the next important thing to say is that the zone, if you think of a badminton court, the layout of a badminton court, there is a zone either side of the net. That whole zone in pickleball is referred to as the kitchen. That's the nickname for it. The actual proper name for it is the non-volley zone, because if any part of you or your paddle or equipment is touching any part of that zone, you cannot take the ball out of the air. The reason that was developed when they were inventing the game in the USA was because there was a big guy in the family, and he just used to stand up by the net and smash the ball away. So they needed to stop that, because that made for very short points and a very one-sided game. They created this zone either side of the net. It's actually not the same as the zone in a badminton court. And when we play tournaments, we actually have to tape another line to show the proper dimension, so it's exactly to the pickleball rules. And that zone is actually 7 feet either side of the net. So you're kept 7 feet back from the net if you want to take the ball out of the air, a volley. But if you are happy to play a ground stroke, let the ball bounce, in other words, you can step in. So I very briefly describe, I'm not going to go into the scoring, because the scoring is needs a little bit of sort of on-court demonstration, I think.
And I think you might just, if you describe it all, Tony, you'll take up the whole half an hour. It's too complicated. That's why I think it's good to have links and for people to be able to actually see. But you're just giving them the gist of
just the gist
of it.
And of course,
of the game. Yes.
The best place to learn more about this is on YouTube, really. Or you can go to our association, Pickleball England's website. All you have to do is put in Google Pickleball England. It'll take you to the site. And it explains all about the game there, and video is the best way to learn about it, frankly. Okay, so what we want to talk about now is how on earth did we get into this game? Because you probably haven't heard of it, and of course there was a time when we hadn't heard of it. Well, I sort of think of this as our first sort of period of getting towards a retirement life. We lived for 12 years in Southwest Florida, and boy, were we lucky to have that opportunity. We flew a lot to America on trips because of our work. We worked for a lot of North American corporations, so we were often there, and we decided, wouldn't it be great to have a base here? So we lived seasonally, so the 6 months of the winter, for a period of 12 years in Southwest Florida, and it was really just an amazing lifestyle. We thought of ourselves as sort of semi-retired, and we were in our 40s at that time. So we were very, very lucky, and we were able to continue running our business due to, the wonders of modern technology, which has just been.
And playing lots of tennis.
So that's what I was coming on to. Thank you. So when we were there, we lived on a gated community, and they had a country club and tennis courts, tennis club actually. And we really got into tennis. Both of us had played tennis from school days. And this was the first time in our adult lives really that we were able to play tennis competitively, because it's so developed over there. I mean, you can play. I know people think it's developed in England, but in terms of club play, Florida is fantastic. We were able to play every day. We were able to play on teams at our level, taking into account our age level, very strictly controlled by the American Association, the USTA over there. There is now, by the way, an equivalent body, the USPA, I think it's called, for pickleball.
Yes, that's
which
right.
is also brilliantly organized. And
we played for Collier County, for the county. Collier was county, was where we lived, and we played that.
Absolutely, we played. We really got into tennis, and actually, as we got towards the end of our time in Florida, we returned to England permanently because we were having grandchildren by then, and it just didn't make sense to be that far away. But towards the end of our time there, I think it was more me, wasn't it, Chris, than you? But
yes, I hadn't even realised you'd heard of it.
I heard about pickleball because I was going around, obviously playing a lot of tennis matches, and there was a particular woman there who was always trying to get me involved in the sport, and because she'd started pickleball, and I saw this sort of funny little game being played at a distance with a ridiculous sounding name. And I was I sort of was one of those sort of sniffy tennis types who wasn't going to lower myself to play a game called pickleball. Boy, was I wrong. I was so wrong, but it was going to take some years for me to find that out. Fast forwarding then, when we sold our house in sort of around 2014 in Florida, we kept in touch with our dear friends, our tennis friends we lived in a place called Naples, which a lot of you will have heard of, in Southwest Florida. And we kept in touch with them, and they told us that on one of the calls we would have with them, Tony and Chris, you got to check out this sport. We have an enormous tournament suddenly here that we're all going along as tennis players to sit in the audience and watch, and we think it looks great, this sport. It's called pickleball, and I said, I think I vaguely remember that. Yeah. And they said, well, look, find out if it's played in England, in the UK, find out. Well, that's what we did. There wasn't Pickleball England, the association, the fantastic association we now have at that time. But I managed to find a club in Surrey that wasn't all that far away, called Runnymede Royals, in a place called Egham. And I spoke to, I think it was a guy called Paul Telling, lovely guy there, who's one of the founders of the club. And he said, come on down, come and play. And we went and we played, and we just loved it. It's just such a great sport. And
addictive, isn't it? It's absolutely totally addictive.
We played our first tournament actually not far from Elmley Castle in Stratford upon Avon, wasn't it, Chris?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
I think we both actually, it was so I think we both won a silver medal there.
Well, it was a round robin, and we thought we'd lost, and we were driving home, and somebody called us and said, come back, you haven't finished, you're in the final. That was so funny.
So it was really weird that we actually managed to get to the final, but that shows at that time it was as I say, in its embryonic stage. This was actually an international tournament. There were people there from all over the world in Stratford upon Avon, and I think it was one of the first big tournaments in the UK. So that, I must be going back to 2015, something like that, I think. And I
think it was a bit later than that. I think it was more like 16, I think.
We got so into it. We played international tournaments. We played in Madrid. We played in Finland.
Amsterdam.
We played in Amsterdam.
France.
Yeah, we played in France. We picked up a couple of gold medals there. By that time, it had become much more competitive. And it was great. Then we got, and this is an important thing to say about pickleball, then we got, well, actually before that, now let me say that first. The great thing about pickleball is that it is something that is cross-generational. You can be on the same court, you can play with your grandchildren. Once they've got sufficient sort of hand-eye coordination and a little bit of strength and athleticism, they will obviously be able to play. And as they get older, they'll, using their supreme fitness and flexibility, you'd think they'd be able to kill you on the court. Well, it so happens that there's also quite a lot of brain power involved in pickleball. If you're a cagey player, you can beat younger players. So it's not just all about flexibility and athleticism. And we taught our grandsons to play. They are now great players, really high-level players. Can't beat them anymore. Well, I might be able to beat them at doubles, but certainly not at singles, that's for sure. Christine and I actually, with a wonderful couple called Andy and Sandy Homewood, who are well known in the sport in England, we co-founded a pickleball club in Surrey called Wasps, like the insect, but with 2 S's. And I did a demonstration at Byfleet Tennis Club and got a few people from there interested in it. The tennis club itself was a bit sniffy and didn't want to get into it. And that's all going to change, I can tell you that, because big tennis organizations are now getting very interested in pickleball because it's attracting a lot of top level tennis players. Especially those that are perhaps ready to leave the sport at very high level. They want to play something fun and that you can pick up sort of much more quickly and easily than tennis, which you certainly can with pickleball. So anything to add so far, Chris? I'm going to have a sip of my tea because I've been speaking at a sort of quite rapid rate and I've got a lot to get through. But anything you want to add so far?
No, yes, no. It became very successful. Our little club. We grew we grew it, and the 4 of us had a couple of sessions weekly. Since we've left, obviously they've kept going, Andy and Sandy, and they've grown a huge membership.
Yes.
Down in Surrey, which is fantastic.
Yeah, congratulations.
They still come. We still go and see them, and they come and see us. So
I'm just going to move us forward, if I may. Then, of course, suddenly COVID hit, and that, was a depth charge going off in our lives, just as it was in all of yours. We moved from where we lived in central London out to the Cotswolds. We live in a village called Elmley Castle, as we've mentioned many times. You can hear the story of that earlier on, I think, in the episodes. We've covered that. But what we couldn't find when we moved out to the Cotswolds was any pickleball at that time.
No.
And of course we had other things on our minds with COVID and getting over that and so on.
And nobody could play for that first year we were here anyway.
Yeah.
It wasn't even able to be played. You couldn't get together. You weren't allowed to play any indoor sports, were you?
Quite. So we did try a demo in a little demo in Elmley Castle's village hall. Unfortunately, the village hall in Elmley Castle doesn't lend itself to pickleball. It's got a badminton court in there, but unfortunately it has almost no runoff behind the baseline. And a bit like with tennis, you do need to have a bit of a runoff behind the baseline because you have to stand often quite a little bit back from the baseline. If somebody's a good server, they will make their serve land very close to the baseline. So often with topspin. So you do need a runoff. That didn't work there, but we did actually attract some people from the village who took an interest in it and now play it every week, which is fantastic. And since then we've picked up other people, but the thing I want to tell you is that in the Cotswolds, not about a 20-minute drive from Elmley Castle, we found a facility in Winchcombe, which is a beautiful Cotswolds village, and we found a group, and we found it through Pickleball England's Club Locator, which is a fantastic tool for anybody who's listening to this, who's in England and wants to find their local pickleball venue. We found the Winchcombe Sports Hall, and we found a group led by Anne Worthington, wonderful woman who leads that group, and we've been playing with some just really nice. We've met some really nice people there. By the way, that is another thing about pickleball. It really attracts the nicest people. So it has a social side to it, which is really, I think, unique. So what we've done, I mean, that group was largely people who hadn't been playing for a long time. We had been playing a long time at competitive level, but there were some people there who were equivalent to our standard, and we've developed another group as well, not competitive at all with Anne's group, but another group which is that just sort of specializes in people who have got to the slightly higher level. And we both go to Anne's sessions, and Christine and I run our own sessions with the level, which is, we like people to be at least at a 3.0 level, really, and above, to be able to play in the higher group. And that's been fantastic fun. So, and it also means that people have a sort of, if you like, a career path. That's not quite the right word, because it's not a career, but they have a promotion. They can,
improvers
level. They can go up, and those people, because not everybody wants to play the sport competitively. A lot of people just want to have fun, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, we still want to have fun, don't we?
We do too, but some people only want, some people don't like the competitive edge. We love it, and for those people who want to play a bit more competitively, that higher level group is ideal.
Well, it certainly makes me laugh a lot, so
it certainly makes us all laugh a lot.
Fun.
But we like to go along to the Anne sessions as well, because it's nice to help other people who are coming into the game, as people helped us. I mean, we really needed help when we first came into the game. There's always people in pickleball who are prepared to do that. If you're anywhere near those areas that I've talked about, you can get to Winchcombe, so it's not far from Cheltenham, it's not far from Stratford upon Avon. There's not,
Worcester. We have someone come from Worcester.
We have people come from Worcester. So if you're in any of those areas and you want to just have a go, I would absolutely encourage you to come along. You don't just need to be dressed as for tennis, really. We've got club paddles that we can lend you while you're trying it out. They're not permanently to be given to people, but they are there for people who just want to try the game for a few times. You come across, you just pay £2 or £3 a time to play, and that's it. It's not an expensive sport to play. We supply the balls, so reach out to us and absolutely give it a go. It's particularly, well, it's, as I've said, it's cross-generational. It's for all age groups, but it's particularly good for people who maybe were great badminton players or tennis players or ping pong players or whatever, and they're getting a bit slower and aches, like mine, our joints are beginning to ache a bit and not quite so flexible. It's fantastic for that because it's a smaller court. There's not anything like the level of injuries, in my experience, in pickleball that there is.
No, that's
tennis.
True. There isn't.
I used to suffer quite a lot when I was playing competitively in tennis, a tennis elbow, stuff like that. Things would get break and hurt and so on. I can't think of an injury I've had in pickleball in all the years I've been playing. So anything else that you'd like to add here, Chris, that you don't feel I've...
No, I don't think so. I think it's
so I
pretty much covered everything.
To give you an idea of what a meteoric rise pickleball has had, it's really the last 10 years or less. You know, whereas developers of housing developments, communities in Florida, for instance, but this applies all over the USA now, would put in tennis courts and would, you know, focus a lot on golf and stuff like that. They are now, you know, regarding it as essential to put in pickleball courts, because everybody, particularly members of the retired sort of level, seniors, if you like, as they call them, they just want to play this game as much as possible. But it was actually invented by the family I talked about in 1965.
It was 55, mid-50s.
Well, there's a bit of controversy about that, but I looked it up again today to remind myself.
Oh, okay.
It sort of said 65 when that family.
Oh, right. Okay.
In Washington State, on Bainbridge Island was the area, and there's a Bainbridge Cup tournament. I think it's annual, which is played in honor of them, but in honor of those people who founded it. And the reason it's called pickleball, you really want to know that, don't you? The reason it's called pickleball is because they had a dog that kept running off with the ball, and that dog's name was Pickle. So when they were considering what they should call this game that they'd invented, pickleball was the obvious choice for them. Now, unfortunately, they didn't probably think this thoroughly through, because they probably had no idea that it would, because it wasn't, for many years, it didn't catch on. It's only, as I say, caught on like wildfire in the last 10 years or less, you know, for reasons that I don't think are entirely clear. But I think one of the reasons is social media, and how it's much more easy to spread the word, you know, without spending loads of money. That's been so that I think has fueled the expansion. But they didn't.
Can I just put in as well is that it's in America it's an outdoor sport.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, the problem we have in the UK is the weather, and so it's quite hard to find pickleball courts, because, you know, badminton indoors is very popular. So in sports clubs and stuff like David Lloyd, all the badminton courts are taken most of the time. So that's the problem we have, is getting outside courts indoors. And outside courts we can play on tennis courts, but again, it's the weather, and we're, you know, as we all know in the UK, the weather controls our lives.
Yeah, we've been playing when we do go back to Florida nearly every year, apart from the COVID year. And when we go back, we always play outside, and it's a lovely game to play outside. But that isn't possible here, not just because of the weather, but because there just aren't any outdoor facilities, or hardly any outdoor facilities. But let me get back to the name of pickleball. What they didn't realize, the family invented it, is that, you know, this was going to be big business. Pickleball is now big business, and just like tennis is. And they didn't realize that, I don't think, and they didn't think about the disadvantages in marketing terms of the game of pickleball. And to give you an idea, we ran with our friends in Surrey, we ran an open day. We were asked by a big leisure centre to run an open day. They were doing all kinds of sports that they were showcasing at this event, and we were showcasing pickleball. And people were turning up with their tiny little toddlers, thinking it was some, you know, that because of the name pickleball, that it was some sort of something for little toddler, you know, little tiny tots to play, some kind of little game. Skittles.
What, little picklers?
Yeah, little picklers. So, you know, and the trouble is that the name does in marketing terms is a little bit of a turn off when people first hear about it, unfortunately. But there's no going back now. We can't change the name of the sport, because it's now so big globally. Big everywhere, big across Europe, India, Thailand, you know, you name it. It's getting everywhere. It's going to be big here. It's already big here. You'll be hearing from our special guest, who is I'll now tell you about that. Our special guest is Karen Mitchell, someone I admire greatly, who, you know, seeing this, who's she and other people, passionate people like her, who wanted to get the game properly organized, got themselves persuaded Sports England. Well, I'll let her tell you the story behind that, but it's now our leading promotional and organizational body in the UK, Pickleball England. As I say, Google it, Pickleball England. You'll learn all about it there. But Karen Mitchell is, a leading light there. She'll tell you about her, the organization's plans, what they've done so far. But they've now said that, they've had
4,000 members. Did she say?
I think we've got 4,500 members in the UK. I think she said
only a few years.
In just a few years, and they have a national tournament coming up, which you'll see all about on their website. And there's already at least 800 participants in that tournament. So fantastic. Where we lived in Naples, by the way, that is now. And was even when our tennis friends contacted us from there, that is now the Wimbledon of pickleball. It is the tournament that goes on every year there at the place that we play, Naples Park East, I think it's called. East Naples Community Park is what it's actually called. That is where the annual tournament is played, and they have now somewhere like 3,000 participants who play in that tournament now.
It's only over 3 or 4 days.
It's only over 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, 3,000 participants in a 3-day tournament. Wow! And I think how many courts? If I remember, about 100 and something courts. I think they have.
I'm not sure that it's that many. But there are a good many courts. There is actually a community that is a very famous community near Orlando called the Villages, which has about 120 pickleball courts for the community. Just for the community. That's how popular it is. It's overtaken tennis. People like to play it even more than golf. It's a lot cheaper to play than golf. And, it's attracted a lot of celebrities recently. I mean, Andre Agassi, Martina Navratilova, Jack Sock, the famous tennis player, has started playing it at professional level. Djokovic has played it. Bill Gates of Microsoft fame plays it regularly. John McEnroe, Sam Querrey. It goes on and on and on and on.
Did you say Andre Agassi?
I did.
Yes.
And there are loads and loads of people from the tennis world who are now seeing the attraction and the benefits of this sport. So you may have heard the word pickleball and thought, nah, it's not for me. Don't want to play something called that. But please don't let that put you off. So we're here in the Cotswolds. I'm glad to help anyone who wants to learn the sport. Go to our Facebook page and contact us via our blog. I will be writing up some things about this in our companion blog, which you can access by going to www.tonycoe.com. So I'll be doing that in the next few days. But most important, go to Pickleball England. Look at the club locator you can find us at Pickleball in the Cotswolds there. As I say, at the Winchcombe venue is where we play. And if you're anywhere else, then you'll find your nearest pickleball club or venue easily through the Pickleball England site. But in the next episode, we will be talking to Karen Mitchell. Can't wait. And we'll be talking more, and she'll be explaining a lot more about the plans, her organization's plans for the sport. So we're just over our 30-minute slot now. So I'm going to say, have you got anything else to say, Chris? Or
no, that's all good. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, in which case, all that remains for me to say is that it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
Thanks, everyone. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.